Have you ever been curious about the ancient peoples mentioned in the Bible? Today, we're delving into the fascinating story of the Moabites, a group with a history as complex as it is captivating. Picture a tale of survival, divine judgment, and unexpected redemption. This is the story of the Moabites, whose origins are as startling as their lasting influence on biblical history. Far from being just a footnote in Scripture, the Moabites play a significant role in the unfolding narrative. As we journey through their history, we'll discover surprising connections to key biblical figures, uncover archaeological findings that illuminate their culture, and explore how their story intertwines with the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. But before we unravel this intriguing tale, consider this. What if the Moabite story begins with an account so scandalous it might make you question its place in the Bible? Brace yourself, because the origin of this ancient people is about to challenge everything you thought you knew about biblical genealogy. The tale of Moab's birth may be uncomfortable, but it's crucial to understanding God's complex plan for humanity. Let's turn to Genesis 19, where we find a narrative that is both shocking and significant. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah have just been destroyed by God's judgment. Lot, Abraham's nephew, escapes with his 2 daughters to a cave in the mountains. In their isolation and desperation, believing they are the last people on earth, Lot's daughters make a misguided decision. They get their father drunk and on consecutive nights lie with him. The result? Both become pregnant. The older daughter gives birth to a son named Moab, the forefather of the Moabites. You might wonder why such a disturbing story is in the Bible. It serves several purposes. Firstly, it highlights the depths of human depravity and the consequences of living outside God's design for family and sexuality. Yet, it also demonstrates God's ability to fulfill his purposes even through human failure. Despite its shameful beginnings, the Moabite lineage eventually leads to Ruth, who becomes the great-grandmother of King David and an ancestor of Jesus Christ. This reminds us that God's grace can redeem even the most broken situations. Theologically, this story forces us to grapple with difficult questions. It confronts us with the reality of sin in the world and in our own lives, while also pointing to the immense depth of God's mercy and his power to bring good out of even the most tragic circumstances. Remember Romans 8 verse 28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." The birth of Moab, shocking as it is, becomes part of God's redemptive plan for humanity. Let's journey to the ancient land of Moab. Picture a landscape of rolling hills, fertile plateaus, and rugged mountains overlooking the Dead Sea. This isn't just any piece of land. It's a strategic location that served as a bridge connecting Africa, Asia, and Europe, a hotspot for trade and cultural exchange. Moab was situated east of the Dead Sea, in what is now modern-day Jordan. Its northern border was marked by the Arnon River, while its southern extent reached the Zered Valley. To the west lay the natural barrier of the Dead Sea, and to the east stretched the vast Arabian Desert. Why does this matter? Because location is everything, even in biblical times. Moab's position made it a key player in the region's politics and economics, controlling part of the King's Highway, an ancient trade route linking Egypt with Mesopotamia. This gave the Moabites significant influence and wealth. But here's where it gets really interesting. Moab's proximity to Israel led to frequent interactions between the two nations, sometimes hostile, as in Numbers 22-24 when the Moabite king Balak tries to curse Israel, and other times more peaceful, even leading to intermarriage, as seen with Ruth the Moabitess. This geographical closeness created a cultural melting pot. Archaeological findings reveal that Moabite and Israelite material cultures were remarkably similar. They shared pottery styles, building techniques, and even linguistic similarities. The Moabite language was so close to Hebrew that they were mutually intelligible. Consider this. God placed these nations side by side for a reason. In Deuteronomy 2 verse 9, God commands the Israelites not to harass the Moabites, saying, "Do not harass Moab or provoke them to war, for I will not give you any part of their land." This proximity forced both nations to grapple with questions of identity, faith, and coexistence. The story of Moab reminds us that our spiritual journey often involves navigating complex relationships with those who are different from us. Just as the Israelites had to learn to live alongside the Moabites, we too are called to engage with our neighbors, even when there are cultural or religious differences. Now, let's uncover some archaeological insights into Moabite culture. The ground beneath our feet holds secrets that bring the biblical narrative to life in ways you might not have imagined. One of the most significant discoveries is the Mesha stele, also known as the Moabite stone. This 9th century BC inscription, found in 1868, provides a Moabite account of events also described in 2 Kings 3. It mentions the Moabite god Chemosh and even references the house of David, offering extra-biblical evidence for the Davidic dynasty. This remarkable artifact shows us that the Moabites had a sophisticated writing system and a complex religious worldview. But that's just the beginning. Excavations at Dibon, ancient Dibon, have unearthed a wealth of information. Archaeologists have found beautifully crafted pottery with intricate designs, demonstrating the Moabites' artistic skill. These artifacts aren't just aesthetically pleasing. They offer windows into daily life, showing what the Moabites ate, how they stored food, and how they traded with other nations. At the site of Khirbet al-Madinah, researchers discovered a temple complex that sheds light on Moabite religious practices. The layout is similar to Israelite temples, but with distinct features. Inside, they found figurines of female deities, suggesting the worship of Asherah alongside Chemosh. This aligns with biblical accounts of Moabite polytheism, such as in 1 Kings 11 verse 7, which mentions Solomon building a high place for Chemosh. Intriguingly, archaeologists have also uncovered seals and seal impressions with names containing the element Yahu, a reference to Yahweh, the God of Israel. This suggests that some Moabites may have worshipped or at least acknowledged the Israelite God. The discovery of ancient vineyards and wine presses in Moabite territory confirms the biblical description of Moab as a land known for its vineyards. Isaiah 16 verses 8 to 10 laments the destruction of Moabite vineyards, and now we can see the physical evidence of this important industry. The relationship between Moab and Israel is like a tumultuous family drama filled with conflict, reconciliation, and unexpected twists. Let's explore this complex relationship that spans centuries and reveals much about God's plan for all nations. Our story begins with hostility. In Numbers 22 to 24, we see the Moabite king Balak, so fearful of the Israelites, that he hires the prophet Balaam to curse them. But God turns these curses into blessings, demonstrating his sovereignty over all nations. This sets the tone for a relationship marked by tension and divine intervention. During the time of the judges, this hostility escalates. Judges 3 verses 12 to 30 tells us about Eglon, the king of Moab, who oppressed Israel for 18 years before being defeated by Ehud. This period of conflict shaped both nations' identities and their perceptions of each other. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite this history of animosity, there were instances of cultural exchange and even acceptance. The Book of Ruth provides a beautiful example. Ruth, a Moabite woman, not only integrates into Israelite society, but becomes the great-grandmother of King David. Her famous declaration, "Your people will be my people and your God my God," Ruth 1 verse 16, shows the potential for cultural and spiritual bridge building. Archaeological evidence supports this idea of cultural exchange. Moabite and Israelite pottery styles are remarkably similar, suggesting trade and mutual influence. The discovery of Yahwistic names in Moabite inscriptions indicates that some Moabites may have worshipped Yahweh, the God of Israel. However, the relationship wasn't always peaceful. In 2 Kings 3, we read about a major conflict between Israel and Moab. The Moabite king Mesha rebels against Israelite control, leading to a brutal war. The Mesha stele, discovered in 1868, offers the Moabite perspective, boasting of victories over Israel and the dedication of captured Israelite lands to Chemosh, the Moabite god. This inscription is one of the most significant archaeological finds related to Moab, as it provides an extra-biblical account that corroborates and adds depth to the biblical narrative. As we move to the time of the prophets, the relationship takes another turn. Isaiah 15 to 16 and Jeremiah 48 contain oracles against Moab, prophesying their downfall due to pride and idolatry. These prophecies reflect not only the political realities of the time, but also the spiritual implications of Moab's actions. Yet, even in judgment, there's a hint of mercy. Isaiah 16 verse 5 speaks of a throne established in steadfast love, a possible reference to the Davidic line, hinting at the inclusion of the nations in God's redemptive plan. The relationship between Moab and Israel is a microcosm of the broader biblical theme of God's interaction with the nations. It reminds us of the tension between judgment and mercy, between conflict and reconciliation. It challenges us to see God's hand at work in the complexities of international relationships, both in ancient times and today. As we reflect on the Moabite-Israelite relationship, let's consider how we interact with those who are different from us. Are we more like Balak, trying to curse our enemies? Or are we like Ruth, seeking to build bridges of understanding and faith? The story of Moab challenges us to see the other not just as an adversary, but as part of God's larger plan for redemption. Now, let's wrap up our exploration with a look at the legacy of the Moabites. While Moab as a nation eventually disappears from the biblical narrative after the exile, its impact lingers. The most significant Moabite in the Bible is Ruth, the great-grandmother of King David and a direct ancestor of Jesus Christ. Matthew 1 verse 5. Her story is one of redemption, showing that no matter your background or past, God can weave you into his divine plan. Ruth's inclusion in the genealogy of Jesus is a powerful statement about God's grace. It highlights that the Messiah comes not just for Israel but for all people. The Moabites, despite their origins and conflicts with Israel, are not beyond the reach of God's love and redemption. The story of the Moabites is a testament to the complexities of human history and the surprising ways God's plans unfold. It challenges us to look beyond surface judgments and see the deeper workings of God in the world. Just as Ruth's story ends in redemption, so too can our stories, no matter how they began. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the history of the Moabites. I hope it has deepened your understanding of how God's grace can work through even the most unlikely of people and situations. As you reflect on the Moabites, may you be inspired to see God's redemptive work in your own life and in the world around you.